Hey, thanks for joining TJ and me for part three of our analysis of the annual conference that took place in Eastern Pennsylvania. This is as I said, third installment of this. If you haven't seen the first two, you might consider going back because there are a number of thematic elements that we've already highlighted that there will be a continuation today. It was a conference that took place over 3 days and exposed a lot about, a lot of common themes from many different annual conferences in the United Methodist Church, but also things particular to Eastern Pennsylvania. As a general reminder, Bishop John Scholl is their bishop. He also serves in the greater New Jersey area as their bishop, and there's a lot of suspicion around him trying to combine those two annual conferences into one against their will. Scholl has a long track record of kind of strong-arming things that he wants to happen and then just kind of using voices as he sees fit to justify his actions. So we've seen a lot of him facilitating conversation in the body and then speaking for the body and emoting and controlling the annual conference in that way, and then strong-arming legislation through and is the first episode we did on this where I talked about different people substantiating a long pattern of behavior on Scholl's part going back to his time in the Baltimore, Washington annual conference. So he's dealing with administrative issues. It's a denomination in decline, but also his annual conferences are in decline. And as I learned this last week, his conference staff is just not maintaining. For one reason or another, there's just constant tumult and things falling through the cracks. So I kind of feel for him. It's a very difficult thing administratively, but also you have to do things. You have to not just do the right things, you have to do them in the right way. And it seems that Scholl has sometimes lacked the patience to do that. Of course, from the peanut gallery, it's real easy to criticize that. We're going to put some links as you consider our words here. One is to an article that they published before the annual conference on the stuff that Bishop Scholl was pushing, and then another is a document that he and the leadership there put out, kind of explaining what happened at annual conference, why things went wrong, how it is that people should receive them. So anyway, you're going to have to do that on your own time. We're not going to go through that. Instead, we've got 6 different video clips that we're going to review from their time together that are just illuminating or entertaining for one reason or another. So this is the first one, and I forget the title. So TJ and I are just going to watch these and then talk through them a little bit. And then hopefully, our hope as we go through this is it's not just entertainment value, but it's actually something that helps people think through, okay, as we're going to continue to be involved in the United Methodist Church, what kind of things do we want to have our eye on whenever we get together for annual conference? What are the ways in which bishops or conference leadership can kind of strong arm and push things through that we want to have our eye on? We're hoping that this is actually helpful for participating in large councils. The Global Methodist Church, we'll see what kind of culture that they get in their assemblies, but I think that this is also good preparation. Well, even if you're not in the UMC or the GMC, if you're a part of any kind of conciliar group or process, just to see the ways in which the process can get kind of toxic and poisoned or dysfunctional, it's good to understand that before you're in it, so you're not freaking out. So here's clip number 1. As I recall, it is it's kind of a debrief on day 3 of what's transpired so far and how it is that everybody's feeling about it. So this lady, according to John Scholl, I think she was the head of COSRO, Status and Role of Women. I'll see if I can't pull up that article while we're watching this video.
Regarding a lack of trust and transparency, members were concerned that the bishop dedicated an extended time to specific resolutions and his bias in advocating for those resolutions. An example, the strategic direction enjoyed 1 hour in presentation and questions prior to parliamentary procedure. Additional concerns were raised that the bishop's power and authority rendered his preferences coercive to members on the floor when giving insight on motions or providing guidance for specific language. A parliamentarian might be the correct person to share guidance on specific language.
Okay, so yeah, that lady is not the one I was thinking of. The next one I was thinking of was the shotgun wedding one. But this one, I mean, she straight up makes some serious allegations as to Scholl's
Yeah, she
character
calls
and
him
leadership.
coercive.
Yeah, for someone who might not use that word very much, what do you understand the word coercive to mean, TJ?
Basically, you're strong arming somebody into doing something you want them to do, whether they want to do it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, she okay, so I think no, this is not Deacon Diana Esposito. She's the next one. So let's look at I'll bring it up to the screen here. This is Joseph DiPaolo's breakdown. That didn't look the way I wanted it to. It's his breakdown of what happened on the third day, Saturday. He said, on day 3, things went further south. At the opening of business, Bishop Scholl informed the body that on the previous afternoon, one delegate had grabbed another by the throat, prompting a call to the police, who expelled the man from the premises. Scholl rightly declared that such behavior was unacceptable and would not be tolerated, but the incident was perhaps a sign of just how tense the atmosphere was. So I've actually got that clip. Let's see, where is it? This is throat grabbing report. This is at the beginning of the session, Bishop Scholl reporting on the throat grabbing incident.
Unfortunately, we had to call the police yesterday because there was one of our delegates who grabbed another, or one of our members who grabbed another member by the throat. And we all are passionate about our work. We're all passionate about legislation. We're all passionate about our issues, but we will not tolerate a behavior that is inappropriate. That member is not allowed in the building today. And if the member does try and come, the police have been alerted so that the member is not here.
He doesn't really go into it much, does he? It doesn't say like what they got into an argument over. Does DiPaolo say it in his article? I don't.
No.
So.
And
we don't know.
I talked to a couple people in this conference. Nobody knows what this incident is that he's talking about. And usually whenever there's something like this that happens, there's a thing called a grapevine that information passes through, and you find some things out. I have no idea what this was. And you notice he doesn't actually say what it was about. Rather, he just says, this happened, emotions are running high.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that was worth talking about, not because it's dramatic, because I think this fits into a pattern of Scholl emotionally manipulating large groups of people. Because essentially what happens is he said there was a violent incident. We're talking about things where people are getting emotional. We can't tolerate it. Police are involved.
So you think he's making like a ploy to say, you guys shouldn't be as aggressive or mean on the floor because it could happen. This could happen. We've already got police here, so.
So I think it's a closing ranks type of thing where he understands people are against him. So what you can do is create a common enemy or a threat that then everybody stands behind you as you stand against it. So, hey, we have some people behaving very inappropriately here. I'm the leader. We're all going to be intolerant of this, and we're going to stand together against that kind of level of violence. I'm not the coercive one. That guy grabbing somebody by the throat is coercive.
Gotcha. So he's just trying to switch the whole thing off of like him being the manipulative one and getting everybody behind him. And I see what you're.
So it's partly that, and it's partly just like when you get people emotional and you're at the head, then you can kind of direct where the emotion goes, how it's filtered. So if on the front end of that day's business, you're going, violent incident, things are escalated, we're going to stand against it, I'm the leader, emoting for you. So this is something I've been picking on since the Arkansas Annual Conference, when Bishop Mueller was using all this emotional language to justify bad behavior on the part of the body. I think this fits in. I think this is just bad administration. Like,
not that Scholl orchestrated the incident
No.
to some, just that he's using it in his favor.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is how Scholl operates is no matter what happens, he's, what is it, jujitsu, where you use people's movements against them. I don't know, kung fu or martial arts. Anyway, but the notion is that if there is no opposition, he moves forward. If there is opposition, he can refocus it so as to continue moving forward. So he knows let no good crisis go to waste or something, I think is the ethic there. Let's go back to DiPaolo's writing. Shortly afterward, the body renewed its discussion on the proposed conference budget. Presented late the previous afternoon, delegates across the theological spectrum had reservations about it, and a substitute resolution with an amended budget had been made. Scholl began the renewed discussion by ruling that motion out of order, then stepped out from behind the presider's desk to give a lengthy explanation to his reasons. This was something he did frequently, distinguishing between his role as presider, where he is supposed to be impartial, and at times when he stepped forward to simply have a conversation with the delegates as their bishop. It was a distinction many delegates found difficult to accept. In the monitoring report given that same day, Deacon Diana Esposito reported feedback from delegates, their concerns over how the bishop dedicated and expanded time to specific resolutions and his bias in advocating for those resolutions. Okay, that's the part we just watched.
That's the first video.
Okay. She also noted delegate concerns that the bishop's power and authority rendered his preferences coercive to members on the floor when giving insight into motions or providing guidance for specific language. So we saw some of that on day 2 whenever he was urging that guy to suspend the rules.
Right. So she was just a deacon and giving feedback that people were funneling to her, I guess.
So, I think he might have been conflating her with, did I not hit it? There's a clip of the shotgun wedding. So I'll call that up. Oh, I guess it was already full screen. Okay, here we go.
We still have much to learn about how to play in a sandbox.
So you notice that gal behind her is the one who just spoke. On the front clip, first clip, that's the one that I just...
Yeah. Sorry,
okay, so she got done speaking, and then this lady spoke, and I think this is Esposito. I could be wrong.
The image that came to me, my brothers and sisters, as I was praying about the report, was that we feel, in a way, we have heard conversations that we are going way too fast in all directions this week. Almost feels like we're being forced into a shotgun wedding, all the way to the honeymoon, but we haven't had the pre-wedding counseling yet. Well, we don't want the pre-wedding counseling, we want the premarital counseling because we want this to work. So hear God's voice on this, please.
So yeah, I thought that was an unfortunate end to otherwise hear God's voice. It ain't God's voice, it's your voice. But even so, like that's the larger critique. What everybody was sensing was it was a shotgun. So we both know what a shotgun wedding is. Two people have been sleeping together out of wedlock. The woman's gotten pregnant. The father of the bride with a shotgun compels the guy who knocked her up to make an honest woman out of her and marry her. Yeah. So to use this metaphor, Bishop Scholl has been sleeping around outside of the right conciliar process, and he has already planted a seed that then it's their job to make an honest woman out of the conference out of. So he's been pushing a lot of reform and new administrative stuff that it's not their job actually to deliberate. Rather, it felt to them like Scholl in his hour-long discourse with his buddies up there was just explaining to them why they should go ahead and bless what he's already decided what they should do. And so she's up there saying, this isn't how good business is done. If you're going to play in the sandbox together, we have a council, there's a process. You need to consider our voices. You need to make... So this ties into a segment I did on bitter medicine, where I talked about how annual conference doesn't work the way it needs to work if you haven't been doing homework before annual conference. If you haven't been in connection with each other, then you can't show up and make good, educated decisions on finance and programming and administration unless you've already familiarized yourself with these things. And in a 3-day event where a large portion of it is just fellowship and worship and stuff, it's really fictitious to imagine that you're going to make an educated decision on these things. I think Scholl's okay with that. He'll just say, yeah, just vote into place what I want. I'm the one I'm the full-time employee. You do what I want.
Well, and I've noticed with the Oklahoma Annual Conference that it's like people just get together and, well, we've put all these people in leadership and they've decided what we're going to do. So we're just going to vote on what they want to do because, you know, we trust them. We don't really know them, but we know that they're in leadership and whatever they say is good to go. We're just here to push a button.
Yeah.
Let it go through.
Yeah, the progressive political movement that began in the late 19th century, one of its presuppositions, and it's been victorious in America, is we need experts. And in any given field, you have experts, and they're the ones that it's not your job to understand them. It's your job to just do what they say.
Right.
And so previous understandings of democratic or conciliar rule are everybody needs to do the hard work of understanding things. But progressivism says, nope, there's too much to understand. We need experts. We need people who specialize. And then we need to collaboratively work together to prop our experts up. And that seems to be the presuppositions of a lot of conference leadership, where we're the full-time staff. We're the ones doing this hard connectional work. We're the ones doing the research. You're doing the local church thing. It's your job to get together and confirm and affirm what we're doing. Send us money, pay our bills.
Let us do the hard work.
Yeah.
You do your thing in your small town. And
well, they'll say, you have really hard work to do too. We have hard work, you have hard work. We support you, you support us. And that's disingenuous. That's just not how, especially in a dysfunctional environment like the United Methodist Church. I mean, you need a lot of trust in a system like that to say, okay, I trust you, you're the expert. Even though you're asking hard things of me, I'll give it to you because I trust you. At this point, that trust has been broken time and time again. They don't have a right to ask for that trust, and yet, time and time again, they do, and then they get angry when you go, no. Well, we played that clip last time where the guy said, we don't trust you, Bishop Scholl.
Yeah.
So when you have something flat out like that, and then the leadership continues to operate under the assumption that these people trust us and should trust us, then there comes a point. I'm sure you've never had a situation, well, I'm sure you have, when you're talking with someone and there's a disagreement and they're just not listening, and you do your best to help them understand you, and they just pick right up where they left off, like you never even, and that seems to be the kind of leadership that they've got in this annual conference. Okay, so there was another clip that kind of fit into this, where there was a woman who had been trying to speak for 3 days. She finally was given her moment of personal privilege. I've been told this woman is actually a progressive liberal. But one of the things that I heard from somebody is effectively conservatives and liberals got all united on one page against the leadership of the conference because of how he was strong-arming things through. So here we go.
Amy Banka, Hopewell. Bishop, I have stood to speak 4 times since yesterday and have been denied until now. I would like to be received with equity. On Thursday, you invited us to share our hopes and concerns, and so today, with respect and grace, I offer this. I am not afraid of change. Over the last 20 years, I have been a leader of change in the local church and this annual conference. During the pandemic, I've been blessed to serve on a church and pastoral staff that innovates, pivots, and grows. We do not fear change. We know it needs to happen, not just for survival, but so that we'll be faithful to our commitment to Jesus Christ. Some of us do fear change, but many of us do not. We live in the realm of possibility, and yet we also know that change brings loss and involves people. It requires honesty and a kindness that lasts longer than sessions and speeches. It requires an understanding of and appreciation for the people involved. It requires the kind of change management that discusses first and then acts, that meets around tables and not behind closed doors. When it is done differently, people inevitably feel unseen and unheard. The method matters. We've talked a lot about the pace, but I am talking about the method. It matters. And so with the utmost respect and desire to succeed together, I want to acknowledge that many of us do not fear change, but we lament feeling those difficult feelings after many years of good service. We lament an affiliation merger in which our names remain unknown and our gifts underutilized. Hear our grief. We lament statements and actions that insinuate that the best thing we have to offer Greater New Jersey is our newspaper. Hear our grief. We lament the absence of EPA preachers, musicians, and leaders from our annual conference at this annual conference. Hear our grief. We know we need to change. We want a holy change, but we want one in which we are included and not replaced or displaced, where our gifts and experience is valued and not dismissed, where our voices are heard and not silenced, where we are part of the adventure and not inheritors of someone else's. The method matters. Bishop, we want to be part of a change that honors the spirit and ministry of Jesus Christ, one that honors the way Jesus loved and acknowledged the dignity of others, one that honors the respectful guidelines for communications we learned about earlier. We want to change, and we want to have ownership and participation in it. And when we see an effort that does that, we will be ready to support it. The method matters. May my words and spirit be a blessing to you, Jesus.
So, yeah, he mutes the microphone while people are clapping. Apparently, there was a lot of public sentiment in favor of that. Okay. So she's just roundly critiqued him and his leadership style.
Thank you very much. We understand, we hear, we are working to understand. We will continue to work to ensure that people's voices are heard.
So I just find it really strange that he's operating in the first person plural when it's almost certainly a critique of him personally. So we,
Yeah.
we're doing this. And of course,
We're doing the work. We're putting in the work. There's still work to be done, but it's just that same line that everybody uses. You need to do the work to figure this out. We're still doing it.
I'm gonna finish this here.
And that people have input into the process. I do want to say on behalf of those who have been working on this, that they have been meeting with the groups that you have elected to represent you. They have held information sessions in which people could come and participate. What I'm hearing is that's not enough. So we will work toward employing some other ways of receiving your input and helping everyone to feel a part of the process.
So the tone of his response is so formal that I find it off-putting and kind of tone deaf. The use of first person plural rather than, hey, there's no, I would have had him say, I'm sorry, I thought I was doing a good job including you guys. What he essentially said is, we've done everything we can, I think. We've included your representatives. We've had information sessions. We've done things outside of annual conference to equip you. So it's frustrating. I can tell you're frustrated. Here's how I would say it. I would say, I can tell you're frustrated, but you need to understand I'm frustrated too because I've tried to use all of the machinery to equip you guys to show up in an informed fashion and know what we're doing here. And I hear you saying you're not informed and you're putting it on me. I'm not sure I'm to blame. I think I've done everything that I can. You say you're waiting on good leadership that includes you. What else can I possibly do to include you? What are you thinking? I actually feel for Scholl in this.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like what exactly are they wanting? Like, I don't know. They said they're the elected officials that they elected. He's spoken with them and involved them. I don't know what that entails. Like, they set up a process to combine these two conferences and then had churches elect officials, or is he just saying like the elected officials, like the conference staff elected officials, like, which aren't?
So no, it would be, so what I assume is, so that every conference has elected its own representatives to general conference and jurisdictional conference. They are the ones that represent the whole annual conference to larger bodies.
Right.
And then, well, so, okay.
So is the combining of two conferences, is that a general conference issue? Or?
I'm pretty sure that he is not trying to combine annual conferences. He's trying to affiliate them. Here, I'm going to. The affiliated, no. Oh, there's only one match. he's not trying to combine them. He's trying to like make it so that they are utilizing each other's resources more effectively, because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. If one has musculature that can be used for the good of the other, let's have a collaborative. But one of the things that she said is it's insulting that the only thing we have to offer the New Jersey annual conference is our newsletter or something like that. And so he's wanting to use some of their...
Well, if he's just like essentially firing all of their staff or getting rid of all of their staff and then using the staff for the other conference,
I'm
like,
not
that's the
sure
same
he
thing
is
as
firing
combining.
them. I think they might be quitting because they don't like all the change. I mean, that's just
Well,
conjecture on my part.
I mean, even then, like quitting and not hiring anybody new and just using the staff for the other conference is essentially like combining them, but not combining them in all but name.
No, well, I mean, I understand why someone would say that, but if you're in two different locations, responsive to two different bodies, being paid by two different budgets, yes, you have one boss over you that is helping you collaborate,
And
but
is
even
pushing their agenda and whatever he wants to do.
yeah, that would be okay. So if it were a different bishop, I would be more optimistic about there being a maintaining of separate culture. But this is also one of the big issues is how much. This is what we've been dealing with in the conversations around race. There's a lot of concern with integration that culture is going to be lost, because that's what happens when different people get together, is they lose their norms of the past. And so
Right, or
she's
they
saying,
create a new culture. But anyways, that's
well,
whole
of course, a
other
new
discussion.
culture is formed naturally. I mean, no, it's old culture is left, a new culture is
Right.
formed by virtue of the new personalities and circumstance. So she's saying we're not afraid of change. We will change. But the reality is everybody is aware that with change comes a loss and a gain. And what are we going to lose and what are we going to gain? That's the real conversation here that is not clear to the people. Is we're clear that we're losing independence. We're clear that we are going to be relying on other people for things that we had direct people responsible for. We're not sure what we're gaining from it other than it ties into the finance piece. Like we've got less money coming in. Maybe this is fiscally savvy, but it's going to come at a cost, and let's talk about that. It seems like there's been a reluctance to talk about it. I've got on the overlay here this article that I think these are the people he's talking about that he has included in the loop as to these changes being made. This room full of people here, this is the staff. Okay, so I don't know who it is. The people that he says he's been consulting, their representatives, but I don't think he's lying. I don't think he could get away with lying on this level. So I suspect that he's got a real problem. He's got a real solution. He knows that the cost is too high for a lot of people to stomach. And I think that's what this woman is speaking to is we're trying to just shove this thing through when there are clearly some costs associated with it that we're not coming to terms with culturally. And then the place the conference ends is with the fiscal costs. They couldn't pass a budget together. So
they didn't ever actually.
No, they couldn't do it. They have to call another conference this year to pass the budget because they just couldn't do it. The next clip that I have is what DiPaolo was already talking about in his article, how Scholl would dip in and out of his presider role. And so we heard that first clip, that lady actually attacked that practice. This is after that when he gets up and explains why.
When you see me move away from the presiding table, I'm outside my presiding role. When I'm sitting at the presiding table, that's when I'm presiding. So it's an important distinction sometimes. It may seem subtle, but it's an important distinction that as a presider, I preside over, I work with what the body wants to do. When I'm out here sitting in a chair, I am your bishop having a conversation with you.
I've got thoughts, but I'm going to defer to you to share what thoughts you got.
I was just going to say, they just need to stop having the bishops preside over an elected parliamentarian. Stop it.
Well, okay, so why, though? Why is that not an acceptable thing to do?
Because the bishop is going to be... he's going to have his own agenda, obviously. Whichever bishop, everybody's going to have their own agenda. If you get together and elect even though you say they're going to be nonpartisan, they're going to have their own opinions. But if their job is just to say, okay, you can do this, that's what the rules say. You can't do this. I feel like that's probably a better option than having somebody who's leading the conference and has all of these, okay, we need to go this way. Let's kind of like orchestrate it the way that I want to, like Shoal's doing. It just seems like there is less of a chance for as much interference. There's going to be some interference and some bleed through of opinion, but not as much, I feel like, as a bishop would. That's my opinion.
So what I don't disagree with you at all. I would say it shows a real lack of self-understanding to imagine that you can go in and out of a dispassionate, objective mindset and a pastoral, invested mindset. And based on literally if you're sitting or standing and where you're sitting and standing. So there's an episode of The Office where Andy is boss for a little bit, and he's got to be mean to him. And so he has a hat he puts on. He said, "This is my heart hat." And it has a picture of a butt on the front. And then he's trying to hop in and out of this role. But it's in a comedy show because we know it's ridiculous for people to be acting schizophrenic in that way. I'm the presider. I am dispassionate. I'm your bishop. I'm loving you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a real way to be in a relationship. It's so phony, and schizophrenic is the word that I said. But also to imagine that a body can hop in and out of those personalities with you and go, okay, he's standing right now. He's in pastor mode. So we can push back in this way, but not in this way.
Yeah.
That's a very fictitious way of imagining group relationship, and that people are going to go through your schizophrenic episode with you that way. That's just really silly. But secondly, okay, within mainline culture, the Bible saying something is not enough. You have to have some new theory for justifying it. So around sexual ethics, one of the things they talk about is power dynamics. And so they'll say, as a pastor, there are certain ways you just cannot interact with people because of the differential in power dynamics. And I think some of that is kind of silly and overblown. But in this situation, he's the one holding all the cards, all the authority. And so he's saying, okay, as a presider, I can operate in this way. And then as the pastoral figure, I can operate in these other ways, and I can fill these gaps, and I can be everything to you. And it's a fundamental lack of understanding about this is a conciliar body. The main character is not the presider, not the bishop. It is the council. And they get to decide what business they do and how they do it. And if you're imagining that you can plug these two big holes as a person, you're sucking up all the air in the room. It's not how a council is designed to act. So coming back to your idea, I think you're totally right. There needs to be a parliamentarian who's hired to be a dispassionate person. And then fine, let the bishop have his personal investment and push people, and not coercively, but lovingly, fine, that's his prerogative. But to fill both roles and act as though that's acceptable, I think shows a real lack of discernment.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to DiPaolo's argument or article. So we've already covered everything up till now, I think. When he finally put the budget up for a vote, delegates lined up at the mics to make motions, ask points of order, or call an adjourned session to have time for reflection and debate. Amid the parliamentary tangle, Shoal abruptly ended debate a few minutes before 10 a.m., declaring the conference had run out of time because preparations had to be made for the scheduled 10:30 ordination service. Murmurs and catcalls emanated from the assembly, including one loud voice, clearly audible even on the church video recording shouting, "This is why people are leaving your church." So here's that clip.
All that want to have a standing count vote, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Friends, we are at the end of our time. We are going to have an adjourned session to...
Wow.
He doesn't even respond to it. I watched it. He doesn't even respond. He just goes on.
Well, and why even ask for a vote if you're just going to
Well, they were figuring out how it was they were going to follow up on all this, and the whole thing was just falling apart. I wish I could see a camera on the floor of how people voted with their hands or standing up. I forget there. But yeah, he's just trying to. They've run out of time. They spent the whole first day talking about feelings, random feelings. Second day, him shoehorning in all his legislative agenda.
And then spending an hour just on his strategic plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just talking. Yeah. And then
poor time management.
Well,
and it doesn't help. And just to play devil's advocate and people in the conference obviously hadn't looked over things. They hadn't really gotten everything together beforehand. People were getting up and talking about random stuff when they all could have like gotten together and said, okay, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. These are the motions we're going to put forward. And this is how we're going to vote on everything, rather than just getting there and then hearing everything last second and being like, oh, I don't like that. We need to discuss this. Like, I don't know how late they put out all of the information beforehand, but they should have had it for at least a little while.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if this is a connectional body, like you're supposed to be in connection with the other members of the body, not like it shouldn't be just a family reunion every time you get together. You should be interacting with these people frequently, not just once a year.
Yeah.
Or it's not a connectional body. Like,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Let's make sure to link to my bitter medicine episode where I preach on that for a bit. Because, I mean, so surely there's enough blame to go around.
Right.
Surely there are plenty of pastors and laity that, okay, so like in Oklahoma Annual Conference, there needed to be a group conversation about disaffiliation, why it's going on, all that. We were not prepared to do that. The annual conference staff was not going to facilitate that because it's not in their interest. The laity network was not in place.
Yeah.
There was no connectional infrastructure outside of the direct control of the staff of the annual conference. So we could not, in a connectional manner, share information. It's been a frustration all the way along. There should be, I mean, when the staff insinuates itself into the middle of all the connectional relationships, that's a problem. That really makes it so that conference staff can easily manipulate a vote by keeping people ignorant and in the dark.
Yeah.
But
and if you're just allowing the conference staff to do everything and put the motions forward and select all the stuff that they want to do, and you're just there to vote yes on
Rubber
it, then,
stamp it, yeah.
Then what do you expect?
Yeah,
What do you expect?
that's the culture in the vast majority of annual. I'm not familiar with one annual conference that really expects a transparent financial report.
Yeah.
That reviews all the materials in the pre-conference journal. I mean, this is something that, as I said, there's plenty of blame to go around.
Well, that's one thing I was surprised about when that was the first annual conference that I'd been to here in Oklahoma, and they just didn't want to talk about the budget at all. They didn't want to like have anything to do with it. Everybody was just ready to go home. I think it was on a Saturday and there was a football game or something. It was like they were ready to just like push it through, no discussion, nothing. Like all they were trying to put forward is like, hey, you guys need to have a little bit more transparency. That was really it. And everybody's like, no, we trust them. They're good to go.
Yeah. And that's not particular to Oklahoma. There's a lot of clergy in particular that just say, hey, I'm here to just talk about Jesus, all the dollars and cents and policies. And you do that. Let's just worship. Let's talk. And then year by year, things get worse and worse. And why is this getting worse?
Yeah.
You know, well, it's because you're not participating in the council effectively. One, I mean, there's many reasons, but that's one of them. So this is one of the things that I hope is different about the Global Methodist Church. There are some things that I just hope we don't do because it can't be done well by a council, so let's just not. There are other things that if we're going to do, I hope that either we do it just better when we're together or we have ongoing open meetings where everybody's included so that when they all get together and say, I don't know anything about this, the response is, you've had 11 months to be a part of these conversations.
Right. If you're going to leave this body and then go into the Global Methodist Church and not change anything, what do you think is going to happen to the Global Methodist Church?
Right.
It's going to turn into the UMC 2.0.
Yeah. Yes.
Fix the stuff now.
Yeah.
Like that's
come together. Yeah. Do the hard work. I mean, take joy in connectionalism. Take joy in administering your new annual conference. Work collaboratively. Have a shared vision. Otherwise, I mean, part of me is and then part of me really likes an autocrat. You know, John Wesley and Francis Asbury were not bringing to the council saying, what should we do with the budget? They were just doing what they wanted with the budget.
Right.
And they were of such integrity that everybody's like, when
those were
annual conference,
exceptional people.
Yeah. And we need to have exceptional people. Like that's the problem is we've lowered the bar. We've got just a bunch of dysfunctional bureaucrats at the top, or I say we, the United Methodist Church does. And then it doesn't work. If you're going to have autocratic leadership that forces things through, you've got to have exceptional personalities doing it. But I mean, I would not identify the current set of United Methodist bishops with anything approximating Asbury and Wesley. So if you can't have exceptional personalities at the top, you have to have exceptionally good conciliar government, which they also don't have, which is why it's falling apart. And so, yeah, let's GMC not be UMC 2.0. That's a serious prayer concern. DiPaolo, in his article, he had a whole paragraph on Amy Banca, who did that personal privilege speech, so we'll skip after that. After the reading of the appointments, the ordination service was held, Bishop Scholl himself acting as preacher. 4 persons were ordained and 1 commissioned, not nearly enough to take the places of the 13 elders and deacons who retired. Thus ended one of the most demoralizing conference sessions we have ever experienced. 5 churches were closed and 5 more approved for disaffiliation. No budget was passed, and a number of resolutions were never considered before time ran out. The atmosphere of distrust, even disgust, was almost palpable within a body that seemed both dispirited and exhausted. When the conference was formed in 1969 from the merger of the old Methodist and the EUB conferences in the region, it boasted well over 600 churches. By the end of the 2023 session, there were about 370, and that includes 50 congregations seeking an exit through a pending lawsuit. By the way, exact statistics are hard to establish since we have not had a conference journal published since 2020. Of those 370 churches, in that document, that Q&A that we're going to link, he says in it flatly, they have not been doing conference finances the way that GCFNA stipulates ever. And they're just now coming into compliance with GCFA standards. How it is that happens and there's not some kind of lawsuit is beyond me.
Like what are the people in the conference doing? Are they not paying attention? Like, you're giving them your money, and then you're just they've got it, and year after year they don't, and nobody's like, maybe we should check on that.
Exactly. Yeah, this is really. I mean, I think that's scandalous. Of those 370 churches, we were told during the strategic plan presentation that only 18% to 25% of them are considered vital. According to the GCAH website, EPA has lost nearly 27% of its membership between 2012 and 2021, and attendance fell during that same period by a whopping 59.7%. Wow. None of this looks good. The decline in eastern Pennsylvania is a microcosm of trends in the larger United Methodist Church in the U.S., lack of unity on core doctrinal issues, clerical defiance of the Book of Discipline, administrative incompetence, and agenda-driven Episcopal leadership have pushed a once great institution to the brink of collapse. No wonder the GCFA recently reported a one-year loss of more than 570,000 members in 2021, and more than 5,000 U.S. churches have already left the UMC through disaffiliation. God have mercy on the United Methodist Church. What an article.
Yeah.
I think that 5,000 number's up to 7,000 now of churches that have disaffiliated.
Well, yeah, and that number of members that have left is probably way
Well, that was just in 2021. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and then what defines membership? Because a lot of these places are just blowing up their membership numbers to make it look like it, and then their actual attendance is a quarter of that of the actual members.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's an underaccounted number for sure.
So, yeah, we've got a situation now where there are a lot of bishops and conference officials writing and saying, okay, we got rid of the bad apples, now time for growth, and people like DiPaolo and me, probably you, would look at the stats and go, no, you can't put the same people who ruined this in charge of the solution.
Yeah.
So I think what they want to do is blame those who are leaving for the failure, when actually it's the ones.
Well, yeah, that's what they're going to try to do, and in a couple of years they're just going to collapse completely. And it was like, those mean conservatives divided us, and there was just so much irreparable harm that was done. We just could never come back from it.
Yeah, I keep waiting for a moment of reckoning where so I think Scholl is a good example, is a good personification of how the UMC has behaved generally, because the grassroots of the denomination has conservative sensibilities, is not wanting to be on the innovative far left of the culture, has traditional understandings of sex and marriage, the role of government, abortion, and yet the elites that have taken over have continually, in the name of these people, with the budget of these people, worked against the ethics and identity of these people. And so, Scholl shoehorning these things through, acting like he's interested in dialogue, but then giving people language, hopping in and out of his functions. All of that is emblematic of the larger United Methodist or mainline. Yeah, not even United Methodist. There's a mainline Christian phenomenon in America where far left cultural elites took over the levers of power and then used all that musculature to drag people in a direction they didn't want to go. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting on them to finally acknowledge, yeah, that's what we tried to do. That's what we're doing. And I don't know why I think they're going to do that. But until they do that, the only other thing they can do is these awful conservatives just ruined it all,
Yeah.
It's a very dissatisfying, as all this wreckage is around you and you're going, it's somebody else's fault.
Yeah. Open your eyes. Like, just a little self-reflection would be nice. Like, for everybody.
Yeah. So, to imagine that, I'm going to keep pushing towards my bitter medicine series. If you imagine that conservatives are faultless in all this, you're totally wrong. I mean, they're complicit in the degradation of all of this. But even so,
yeah, it's not just the more progressive people that are not being in connection or not paying attention to what's going on in the conference or informing their congregation of what's going on. Like, if this is all on the clergy, like, I mean, the church is made up of more than just the clergy. I mean, you've got the lay people too that aren't aware at all. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that weren't aware of most of the stuff that was going on until people put videos out. Like, we put videos out specifically so the lay people can know what's going on.
And we hear from lay people every day saying, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So pastors have really failed to give good information. Conference staff have failed to give
It's another one of those things. Well, we put these people in leadership and we just trust them, and then they can do all the hard work, and we'll just show up on Sundays and Wednesdays maybe.
Right.
So
it's just not. In the United States of America in particular, that's such a scandalous way to be, because the whole American project is based on an informed populace.
Yeah.
So to have a whole populace that said, we don't need to be informed anymore, when clearly, the signs, we got the wreckage all around us of what happens when we don't stay informed and active. So anyway, if you felt burned by any of this, good. It's good for you. There's clearly a response that's needed here. If you're still in the United Methodist Church, then, just do your best to push leadership in the right direction and have good, responsible conversation throughout the year and foster good connectionalism between your church and others. If you're outside of the United Methodist Church, make sure that whatever body you join is not guilty of the same sins. So, TJ, anything else to close out this whole series?
I don't think so. I think that's a good way to end it.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.